Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to the ones watching for the first time as well. This is the Predictive Playbook, and I am your host, John Ryan from SportsMemo.com. I'm starting out the show today with Jesse Schul of SportsMemo.com and Nick Borman, our genius PGA expert and professional bettor. Welcome to the show, fellas. We're going to get started with golf with Nick's expertise. I must say, Nick, you are rubbing off on me because somehow on the Manny, I think it was one of the days last week, obviously. My free pick for the show was Paul Casey and Xander Schauffele. So I appreciate you for giving me that ability to pull that one out of the rabbit's hat, you know?
Definitely a good hit on Xander.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 22-1, and I was bold enough to do about 5 pieces. Interesting enough, Tony Finn said, well, why don't you bet him to be the leader at the end of the second round? So that's the day I did it, now that I remember. And I said, well, come on, he's like 7 shots out of the lead right now. We got till Sunday, and I think by then he has a pretty darn good chance. And wouldn't you know it, he shot 63, I think, that second day and took the lead, and he never gave it up.
Yeah, he went low.
So it could have been better, but, you know, there's a saying on Wall Street, bears make money, bulls make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So I always remember that. So we're at TPC Southwind here for the St. Jude World Golf Championship. This is going to be another pretty large field. It's not going to be complete like a major. But Justin Thomas was the winner last year at this course. 13 under. And I'm going to turn it right over to you, Nick, to tell us who's on your radar and who we should tail.
Well, this is a WGC event, so you hit it. It's a big, deep field. The only guy missing is Rahm, which I wonder if I wonder if the timing didn't work out from his COVID test is the reason. But DeChambeau's in, so not sure how that timing worked out. But anyway, he's not here. Otherwise, everybody else pretty much is. And I mean, I'll start right at the top. If you're looking at any of the favorites this week, I always try to look at one of the guys that are in that, you know, first 5 or 6 guys on the odds board. And for me, unfortunately, I hate doing it. But, you know, the one I like the best is the favorite this week in Koepka. It's a good reason he's the tournament favorite. He won this event 2 years ago in 2019. He finished second last year. He also had a runner-up here and a third-place finish at this venue before it was a WGC event. This is just the third year now it's a WGC event. So in his last 6 starts here, he's got 4 top 3 finishes. He's also finally healthy this year coming in, and he's coming in hot. He finished his last 3 events are tied for 4th at the U.S. Open, tied for 5th at the Travelers, and tied for 6th at the Open Championship. And one thing I'll note here, which you'll hear as a theme for me, is he did not play last week in Tokyo, which I think is a bonus this week, as that travel is you know, quite a bit coming in here. So I think that's a good thing for him that he didn't play last week. He ranks 6th in this field in strokes gained over the last 3 months at plus 2.06 per round. So again, not great price at 12-1, but this is a smaller field. This is not your normal 140 plus person event. There's no cut this week. You're guaranteed 4 rounds with these guys, and you know, if somebody gets off to a slow start, even the best, as Xander did at the Olympics, guaranteed 4 days, a lot can happen. So Brooks Koepka, unfortunately, I'm going square with that play, but I like him this week. Everything, course history and current trends are playing well, and he plays best. You know, in deep field events, it's not a major, but if there's an event that he's good at that isn't a major, it's this one.
That's awesome stuff, and coincidentally, your information is certainly more important than my models, but I've put together some pretty advanced models, and guess who comes up first on my board?
Mr. John Daly.
Koepka.
Ah, Tony Finn, I didn't see you were in. What's going on, buddy?
You know how good I am at making myself invisible.
Mr. Veno, how are you, sir?
And Veno.
Oh, good afternoon
surprised
to you
you are
too,
late.
Tony Finn.
Who? You can see me?
Fuck
You
yeah.
know, Nick, I've done monologues on this thing because they're obviously I'm trying to kid around, but they're running late. They're doing more shows. But there's been times I've done 15, 20-minute monologues, and it's fine. But when they know that you're coming on to do golf, it's amazing how prompt they are. And I'm starting to feel a little shell-shocked.
I'll be right back as soon as you're done with the golf. I'll be right back.
I know, Rob.
No, it's Kupka. It's Kupka. We're gonna have
Nick, I tell
we're
you
gonna have Max
I'm-
on record here in the chat room in about a minute. In fact, right here he is. I love this guy. This guy. I'm gonna have to find out how to have like a virtual beer with him or something. Alert Fade, Meathead. He has lost 10 pounds since returning from Japan.
How did he know? How did he know I was in Japan?
Oh, I mean, you were all over social media, Tony. I mean, you were at the girls' gymnastics event.
I was at the sand volleyball the whole time.
Artistic swimming event.
Mark.
Tokyo Tony.
Did you just say autistic? Did you say autistic swimming event?
Stop
Or-
it, John.
or-
Move on,
Did you
John.
say that?
Move on.
I said artistic
Move
swimming.
on. Before we get in trouble, move on.
Holy crap, John!
It used to be called synchronized swimming, Tony. But Nick,
Okay.
let's move on with we have identified Kupka as a guy that you're going to bet to win top 10, top 20. Is that how you're going to play him?
With odds like that at 12-1, he's really just an outright play. I don't, when they're that low, I usually don't back him up with the top 10 or top 20 because it's not worth it. When you get a little bit lower in the 30 range, then you can start to back it up.
Love the pick. Anybody else on the radar?
Yeah, I got a couple others. One more, little higher on the odds board is Louis Oosthuizen. I mean, again, I'll go back to he did not play last week at Tokyo. Again, a big theme. No travel to worry about. But honestly, you got to listen to his recent finishes here. So over his last 8 starts, we'll go with the most recent first. His finishes are tie for second, tie for third, tie for 42nd. That's the outlier. Second, tie for 18th, tie for second, tie for 8th, tie for second. So that one outlier at tie for 42nd was on the Euro Tour. Other than that, he's got 4 runner-ups in his last 8 events, and 7 of them inside the top 20. He's even better than Brooks Koepka over the last 3 months. He ranks 3rd in this field, strokes gained, averaging 2.39 per round. Also ranks 3rd in strokes gained over the last 12 months, just showing how consistent he's been for well over the last year. He ranks number 2 on tour this year in scoring average, and number 1 with the flat stick. So big numbers there for him. In 2 starts here at the FedEx WGC event, he finished tied for 6th last year and tied for 20th in 2019. So he's 22-1, and I like him. Again, those 2 guys, I'm expecting to be there on Sunday and just give us a chance to win. And that's what I really like with outright guys. It's fun to take the deep shots, which I have one more I'll mention that's a lot lower. But those are guys I think that come Sunday will be within a couple shots of the lead, if not in the lead. So I like that.
I do too. He's number 5 on my model, and like you said, you don't have to worry about your 6 guys making the cut. They all do.
Yep.
And that allows you to scroll down the salary ranks and take a look at not necessarily a Phil Mickelson at 6,600, but if I can ask you a question, what do you think of Garrick Higo at 6,300 as a guy that can make some noise, finish in the top half perhaps?
I'm not sold on him yet in a deep event like this. I know he got his win, but that was not a big event. So, until we see him perform in these WGCs or the majors, I'm not really ready to back him. Matchup play, perhaps. I'm not sure who he's actually up against, in a matchup. But as far as an outright, I did not play him this week. He did not circle.
Okay, I'll make sure I don't use him in my lineup then, because I know that is a one of those that's 50-50. You either look like a dunce or you look like an absolute genius.
Yep.
Now, what this course, fairly well, I would think. What kind of golfer does it favor? Does it favor the bombers? Does it favor the guys that can putt very well, get up and down around the green, or is it an all-encompassing type of course?
They're small greens here. So what I was reading is that the rough is not long. It's only 2.5 inches, which by PGA Tour standards is not long. So, the guys that are going to hit pretty far and have short irons into the greens are going to be much more likely to hit the greens. So, and you're not going to get penalized too much if you're, if you stray off the fairway, at least, a little bit. So I think length does matter this week. Usually, I throw that out the window at certain types of events, but I think this one it will help the guy because, again, short irons are a lot easier to hit than a 5-iron hitting those greens. So I think length matters. And then I mentioned Louis Oosthuizen being the number one putter on tour, but sometimes when you get into these short green situations, it almost levels the playing field a little bit because you have smaller greens. So if you're on the green, you're kind of, you're not putting from 30, 40 feet a lot. So it could kind of negate the putting aspect a little bit. But I like guys that are good with their short irons and guys that can that hit it pretty far this week.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, guys. If you go to see this, or if you're playing it, you definitely must stay out of the water in the last 5-hole stretch, especially 18, which is a dogleg left, and it has water all the way down the left side. And as Nick said, with a small green, small target, and this hole does play pretty long. It's 453 on the scorecard, but if I remember right, Nick, this thing plays closer to like 490, and that second shot is one of the scariest on the courses. So it'll be a great group of holes, finishing holes to determine the winner come Sunday, I think.
Yep, absolutely.
How about a sleeper? Guy that you might want to use for, to help me in my DraftKings lineup.
All right, I don't really consider him a sleeper, but he's priced like a sleeper this week, and that's Corey Connors.
Yeah,
he's 55-1 for an outright this week, and here's where I have him backed up. I have him as a top 10 play plus 400 as a play on my client card this week. He's a guy that he can't quite seem to get over the hump and actually win. So that's why, like I said, I do like to back him up with that top 10 or top 20. But he's been very good this year. He ranks 11th in driving accuracy, 11th in greens and regulation, 19th scoring average, 9th strokes gained off the tee, 9th strokes gained approach, 13th strokes gained tee to green. I mean, those are a lot of high rankings for a guy priced 55-1. He's also, results-wise, been awesome. I mean, he's got 16 top 25 finishes in 25 events this year, including 7 top 10s. There is no cut this week, as I already mentioned, but it is worth noting he's a regular 4-day player as he's missed just 2 cuts in 23 starts since October. Point being that he's always in contention. He doesn't, shoot himself out of contention early in any type of an event. He did play in Tokyo last week, so I'm not necessarily blind fading that, but so he's the one guy that I did circle that did play last week, but I think, for him, I don't see too much issue here with fatigue. It's only his 3rd start since the U.S. Open, which was in the middle of June, so I don't see a fatigue factor here for him. But he's got so many good numbers. He's been in contention so much this year. He hasn't gotten the win, but he's been damn close. So top 10, 4-1 on your money for Corey Connors, and throw a little pizza money on 55-1 for him to finally hit that outright ticket.
Yeah, I like that name quite a bit. That was in my head as well. He's had a great year.
Yeah.
And he's had just very few bad rounds that are just like horrible rounds. And personally, tell me if I'm thinking right here. Like DeChambeau, as Max on Record is saying in the chat room, he apparently lost all this weight, but this course doesn't seem to be like a course that is good for him. And actually, I don't think DeChambeau has been playing well at all compared to his peers. And I would avoid him, actually, and not even use him in any lineup. And if anything, I feel like betting against him in all the matchups that he might be in. Maybe bet him not to make the cut. But there is a cut. I mean, there isn't a cut. Sorry, I came out.
You'll lose that bet. So DeChambeau's interesting. So in his last 6 starts, he does not have a top 10. So you're right. He's not in great form coming in. The most intriguing part, the part I hesitated several times, and I'm still looking at him with his name at 35-1 next to it and going, I don't know. I feel like he's gotten to the point where obviously he's got the talent, and it's only a matter of time before he starts to play well again. It's not like he's playing poorly. He's just not up to the elite level he was. But 35-1, you don't ever – it's been a while since we've seen him at a price that high. It reminds me Koepka earlier this year when he was coming off of knee surgery, and he was just – I don't know if it was his first or second start back. I forget which tournament it was. He was priced at 53-1 going into the event just because of that. He finished second, and I'm like – I took him just because I'm like, you're never going to see a price like that on him. And DeChambeau 35-1's getting to that range. And I'd hate to, have that win pop up here and then, we never see him above 20-1 again for another year. But so I honestly haven't done anything with him yet, but I have thought about it and I'm very intrigued by his price, but it's purely from that reason only. I don't think he's playing well right now. And I don't necessarily have any indication that he's going to all of a sudden turn it on this week, but his price is kind of hard to pass.
Good stuff. Now, one thing I will mention, I've been noticing this. John Rahm, when he almost won the Open Championship, was the favorite, and it was anywhere from 7.5 to 8-1. And he didn't start out so good. It wasn't horrifying, but he didn't start out so good. And I looked him up, and he was 35-1, and the guy had played 7 holes, and it's a 72-hole event. So I did a little, historical research and noticed that this is something that you can do. Mm-hmm. For example, if you like the top 3 favorites, well, top 5 are Koepka, Spieth, Morikawa, Schauffele, and Dustin Johnson. All are 18-1 or less. It makes no sense other than to put 50% of a bet, like put a half a pizza on before the tournament starts. Because it is very likely you're going to be able to get a much, much better price during that first round, especially the first 9 holes, than you will now. I can't remember a time, and maybe, Nick, you can tell us, where one of the top 5 favorites started their round 4 out of 5 birdies. Because that's the only way that line is not going to get better for you if you use a lot of patience. It's usually one of the guys in the morning, and they, a name sometimes you're not all that familiar with that, oh, wow, so-and-so is, 4 under through 6. But those actually help then increase the odds on a Koepka, even if he hasn't even gone to the first tee. So it's interesting how they're using these algorithms, and I'm starting to think that there's definitely opportunity where the market is mispricing those guys that I just mentioned. So I just throw that out there that there's no rush to the window in these loaded golf events because I've seen time and time again it's almost a certainty that Brooks Koepka will be better than 11-1 at some point during that first round.
I'll just add to that. You're absolutely right on the money. I did that exact scenario with Rahm. I mentioned in the previous video prior. I said I'm not going to play him before the tournament, but if he does not get off to a good start Thursday, I will. And I added him to my card at 33-1. Obviously didn't cash, but man, was that good value compared to where he started the tournament. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you get Xander last week after round 1? I mean, 22-1, I think you said. He was what, in the 12, 14-1 range before the tournament? So it's especially at an event like this week where there is no cut, you don't have to worry about a slow start and all of a sudden they might not make the weekend. They're going to be there. If they get 3 more rounds at it, one of those is going to go low and they're going to shoot right back up that leaderboard.
Mr. Finn and Mr. Veno heard me utter those words. As it literally was the free pick on the show at the end of the show. And honestly, I was leaning between McIlroy or Schauffele, and Schauffele came out of my mouth, and it was the right thing to come out of my mouth for once. But any last thoughts on the tournament?
I'll just throw one matchup out there because again the matchups are, a little easier to hit and bigger bets, and one matchup usually can cover your whole outright card. So I'm on Spieth over DJ Dustin Johnson this week, and really, if you look at history here, it's gonna be hard to want to fade Dustin Johnson because he's been really good here. He's got 2 wins and 2 other top 10s at this event in 7 starts. but he just hasn't been firing on all cylinders this year. He had strung together a decent 4 results before missing the cut at the 3M Open. But, I mean, this year in the big events, he missed the cut at the PGA, missed the cut at the Masters, tied for 40th at the Players, tied for 54th at the WC Workday. Those are the big name events where number one player in the world, now number two, should be competing, and he hasn't been. The most interesting number I see on him right now is over the last 3 months, Dustin ranks 22nd in this field in total strokes gained per round. He's right in the same wheelhouse as guys you've heard of, maybe Adam Scott, Sam Burns, Brian Harmon, and Ian Poulter. So for the world number two to be in that same category is not very good. Meanwhile, Spieth, he's number two on tour over the last 3 months and 6 months, averaging 2.5 strokes gained per round. The only guy that's ahead of him isn't playing this week, and that's Rahm. So he is rightfully where he needs to be in the odds market. He's only minus 115 over DJ. I had him priced around minus 150. So I think it's a great value at minus 115. Spieth over DJ, I think. And I'm not saying DJ is going to play awful, but maybe he finishes 15th. And Spieth either is top 5 or right up there again, somewhere near that top that leaderboard. So I like Spieth over DJ.
And last, before we move on to Major League Baseball, Max, he just he dislikes DeChambeau as Mr. Finn dislikes Davey Roberts. And every week, and I think it's hysterical, but when you're dealing with money and recommendations and you want to win, I don't really like this betting against Meathead with DJ being on the other side of the ledger. If it was anybody else, as to your point you just said about DJ not playing well, and he's the number two, I think you just leave this alone. And maybe you can talk me out of that and I can get on it, but these two guys are so erratic right now. I don't know even if a coin flip would help.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of edge. Best way to say it either way on either of those players. Not particularly high on either one. I don't see a reason to bet that matchup at all. There are, depending on the books, golf matchups sometimes are tough because every book offers different matchups. But check other books and see what other matchups Meathead has against them. And you're right, if it's Spieth, if it's Morikawa, you're going to be paying more than minus 123, but they're a lot likely to finish ahead of them than I would trust DJ.
And what package do you have for sale over there at WagerTalk for people to get?
Right now, it's this week's pack is $19. It's 4 days, and it includes the WGC event's a limited field. So there's also another PGA Tour event this week, the Barracuda Championship. I don't have as much action in there, but I do have a couple outright plays in there. So it includes coverage of both events for all 4 days, outrights, leaderboards, head-to-head matchups, and then any daily ads along the way.
Awesome. And your plays last week, forgive me for not knowing this already, you were profitable last week as well, right?
In for golf, for the Olympics?
Yeah.
No. I had my 4 outrights did not come through, and my matchups were 2-1, so I lost just a little bit. The 2-1 did not quite cover the matchups, but it was minus 1.5%. So very.
That makes you 8-1 on a weekly basis since you and I have been talking, which is outstanding. That's why I wanted to bring it up. That's 89%, folks, and nobody on this show can say 89%. Well, I mean, we can say it, but I don't think
90.
You can say 90. That's pretty good, Tony. That's impressive. That's really impressive.
I know it counts.
All right, Nick, you're welcome to stay with us here and help us chat through some baseball.
Yeah.
Which is a real passion here. I'm now 20-8. My last 28 in Major League Baseball. I did have those Marlins last night, and there's times when you make a play like that, and I know you guys have all felt it. It could have been plus 300. It could have been plus 350, and I would not have been scared to bet it, and I wouldn't have been feeling unconfident that the Marlins were going to win. Got a little shaky at the end, but it doesn't matter. It's not like you have Jansen on the hill for the Dodgers trying to rescue a game. But We now have the Atlanta Braves on my radar. And I don't know if any of you guys want to break down that game tonight with the Cardinals. But I can show you, to get things jump-started here, why I like the Braves. And I think, Tony, you said it last night, like, don't look now, but the Braves are only 3.5 out. Well, now they're 2.5 out, and they're a half game behind Philly, who is 2 games behind the Mets. And I think there's no doubt now the Mets are in big trouble. So in this particular situation, you're going to bet on home underdogs between 125 and 175. Wait, this is the wrong one. I don't know why this doesn't stay put on my... Every time I start a show, I have to reload these things up. That's tomorrow's, which we're going to talk about too. But here's the one tonight. Atlanta Braves Cardinals, 8:15 Wednesday. Smiley against J.A. Happ, 2 lefties. Bet under with any team. The total is 9 or 9.5 runs. Starting pitcher has a 7 ERA over his last 3 starts or higher. Bullpen is not allowed an earned run in back-to-back games. 63-31, 67%. $100 better doing this angle has made just about $3,000 over the last 5 seasons. Do you guys like the under, or you can talk about the side? You can even talk about the over, too, if you want. But let's start with Rob Veno.
Wow. Well, we don't like either one of these pitchers, that's for sure. St. Louis, obviously, that's a trade deadline move to get J.A. Happ. We saw what the other one of their trade deadline moves did last night. John Lester got his team beaten in the first inning. So I don't know that I would sway towards St. Louis. It's hard. It's still hard to take Atlanta serious. They're not even a 500 team. I mean, the only reason we talk about them is because they're in that division. Otherwise, I think if you take them and the Phillies, you put them in the Central, they're 10.5 back and 11. And if you put them in the West, they're 13 and 13.5 back. They're distant memories in either other division. So the Mets are going through a losing streak right now. Tried to come back last night, couldn't. Get Brandon Nimmo back here. I think, the Braves, the one good thing about the Braves, in my estimation, is that the organization felt like the Mets were catchable before the deadline, and they went out and made about 7 different moves. Those moves weren't a bunch of big names, but they were good enough on an everyday basis to help cover for the loss of Ronald Acuna. The bullpen is still a bit untrustworthy. Boy, I don't know, John. That's a game where I could almost see that game going over the total. Atlanta against a left-hander with all the right-handed bats that they acquired. I think every single bat that they did acquire at the trade deadline, they were all right-handers to help spice that side of the plate up. So I could see them getting their share of runs. And Drew Smiley, he'll give us 4 1/3, 4 2/3, something like that. Give up a couple runs along the way. And then we'll turn it over to the Brave bullpen. So if I were going to play, I'd probably play over, but I have no real interest in that one. I know that, St. Louis has had their difficulties hitting the baseball, but Drew Smiley might not be a guy that it's all that difficult to score a couple runs against tonight.
All righty, fair enough. I am a little nervous playing this under. I guess part of me thinks that it's already, the 2 starters that are struggling, it's already factored into the number. And it might not be factored in enough, obviously. But let's go to Tony Finn, and then we'll go Jesse. Nick, if you have any opinion on the game, you're welcome to share it. It is a similar game to golf, by the way. It involves a spherical object and an object that's put in the hands used to hit that spherical object. So they do have commonalities. But Mr. Finn, what do you think about this matchup? And feel free to tell me if the Braves are going to be that team out of nowhere that's going to take the East.
Well, I will be free to tell you that I didn't share some of this. I did share some of my thoughts on the Braves and St. Louis and what the Cardinals did, the front office did at the trade deadline to give their fans the utmost confidence that they were still in this race in the NL Central. They went out and grabbed John Lester, and J.A. Happ and announced to the world that we are back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least I got a chuckle out of somebody because I was trying to be funny. And so I failed. But that is not just, coming from an uneducated hillbilly like myself. That is not going to do it. It's not going to do it. It wouldn't do it if I didn't know anything about baseball. I would say, whoever Happ, J. Happ, where did he come from? What kind of name is that? No, in seriousness, guys, listen. I've thought about this. I thought about betting the series price in this Atlanta at Busch versus St. Louis. The series price yesterday was minus 130. And I said, well, I'm not playing the series price. I said, I'm going to go ahead and play Freed at minus 120. So I played Freed at minus 120 at as what you would call John pizza money. And so today I've parlayed that money onto Smiley at plus 102. So when I win this tonight at plus 102, I can make a decision. I can take my profit and I can, again, turn it into a play tonight or tomorrow night on the matchup, which is we get Toos going for the Braves, and I can't remember now who was going for St. Louis, but I've already looked at all the matchups. And what I said was, and what I didn't say to you guys yesterday was, it's funny. I did the first pitch today. Did it with mid-major Matt, and of course Las Vegas Drew. And all of us were talking about the NL East and how I shared that I thought this was going to be the league that was the most fun to be involved with in the last 2 months of the season, as long as you're not a fan of one of the damn teams. Because if you're a fan of one of the damn teams, it's going to be moidrous. It's going to be head-pounding, heart-wrenching, and you're going to have so many highs and so many lows that, in my opinion, that as long as you're healthy, young and healthy, and your heart can take it, then damn, enjoy it. But if you're a fan or a wager or a gamer like us, then pick your spots because it's going to be crazy and expect the unexpected. I said, they asked who's going to win this division. I said, I shared the conversation that you and I and Rob had after right post All-Star break, and that while it wasn't necessarily about the division, although we did mention it, it was more about the Cy Young and about the money that you had to lay on DeGrom to catch that Cy Young future this year, and also about the series prices, what Philly was paying in the World Series, what they were paying to win the NL East. And I shared with them, again, in your terms, John, I played pizza money on the Phillies to win the World Series and to win the division because the numbers were stupid good. The fact is that the Phillies were 4 games behind a Mets team that just lost DeGrom for at least 2 weeks. Now we find out 4 weeks, maybe the rest of the season. Who knows? And they were bringing back a guy who's what I consider a very difficult pitcher to umpire. He bends and he breaks not only his pitches, but he bends and breaks the rules of baseball. And it takes a certain umpire to make him elite or make him better than who he's facing. I'm talking about Carrasco, okay? And tonight, Carrasco goes too. We can talk about that game a little later on, but I've stretched this out as long as I can. Matt and I said, listen, I like the Philly, despite the fact, and I went through the speech, guys, and I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but I think it is relevant to what you just asked, John, and that is I went through this kind of monologue that you would do before a show, especially if Rob and I didn't show up. And you had, you're talking to yourself. So it would be one of those monologues. And
my therapist said it's good for me.
Yeah. Listen, I get out and water plants and talk to myself and kick the flies and stuff like that. It's good for my head. It really is. It's better than trying to kick games around sometimes. But this Phillies team is going to turn you. They're going to twist you. They're going to relentlessly drive a large number of their young or their newer fans to seeing a shrink before fall arrives. I'm convinced of that. No matter what skipper Joe G does, no matter what, he is stretching reality, guys. Be it playing the percentages and moving his pin in and out of the game to assist in contributing to a team win, only to find that he's either pulled the starter too soon or left him in 1 or 5 pitches too long, which I think probably was the case with Wheeler yesterday. Matt made a very good point that their pin was exhausted, et cetera, et cetera. But long story short is that he expects more from his mid-game firemen than they're probably capable of. So he'll leave his starter in yesterday, especially he wanted this win. So he left him in pitch or 5, like I said, too long, and the whole game plan goes out the window. All right. You two know that I was on the run line with the Phillies yesterday. And when I saw it 5-2, I said, well, shit, I don't have near a big enough lead to win by 2. There's still an inning to play. And you think I'm kidding you? I said that to myself. I believe that too, because nothing's safe. And I listen, I'm a believer in Philly, but every time I watch them, I lose a bit of faith in this Philly squad, even when they win. And I like them tonight. In fact, I'm going to go contra here. Most people, you guys have already said it. Anderson, Espino. Who thought that this was going to be one of the feature matchups on first pitch to talk about in August with Anderson and Espino pitching, right? If you'd asked me, if you said, what are you going to talk about these guys in August, I laughed at you in March. I said, we're not going to be talking about Espino and Anderson, Chase Anderson in August. Here we are. And here we are. And not only are we talking about them, but this is a bigger game. Every game's big right now to Philly, but this is a big game for Anderson, who's come off the COVID, who was pitching middle relief, guys, okay? Middle relief. Goes to the 10-day COVID list, July 10th to July 20th, okay? Comes off the list, gets thrown in. He follows lefty Matt Moore. Matt Moore doesn't pitch great, but he follows him, gives 2 innings, perfect 2 innings. And when I say perfect, I mean 6 up, 6 down. 4 fly ball outs, or 4 ground ball outs, 2 fly ball outs. And then he's pulled because they're gonna he hadn't been stretched out. He's really not been stretched out for a full load anyway. But then 3 days later, on the 30th, on the trade deadline, he comes in and he relieves Vince V, who didn't pitch very well, as you guys know, being Philly fans. And he goes 4 innings and gives up 3 runs, but 4 innings, strikes out 5, walks 2. And I thought that what I saw out of Anderson at that point in time, those 4 innings, that's all we're going to ask of him, is exactly what you're going to get from Anderson in September, August, and September. You're going to get 5 to 6 innings, 6, maybe sometimes 7 if he's got his best stuff and he's facing the lineup, might be struggling. And he's going to give up 3 runs and strike out 4 to 6 batters. That's what you're going to get. And if he doesn't walk anybody, he's probably going to be pretty successful. Tonight, when I mentioned to Mid-Major Matt, who's a Phillies fan, let's not disguise it for anything that it's not, or try to label it something it's not. He is a Phillies fan, and he doesn't like the Phillies. He's a typical fan that doesn't like their team because they always disappoint, or they're disappointing, or frustrating, right? And he said, Tony, you lost your mind. I said, well, tell me something that's not, give me some news that is breaking, because everyone knows that already. So I said that Anderson's going to give him 6 innings. If the Phillies are going to win tonight, Anderson's going to give him 6 innings, effective innings. Now, I'll tell you right now, this lineup that the Washington Nationals are throwing at Philadelphia have 48 at-bats. 24 of those at-bats are to one guy. They don't know Anderson as well as you would expect them to know a 33-year-old pitcher, okay? And if anybody wants to know, if anyone's thinking in their head, well, who is Espino and how? This is a 34-year-old pitcher that's been in the rodeo, that's been around the block, And if you look at his last 3 starts, albeit against the Cubs, 3 teams that are not going to scare me or you if we're facing them. with our 65 mile an hour batting practice ball, and I played under. I played under 9.5, and it was a heavy 9. It was a heavy 9.5 under. It was juicy at 20, or you can play 9 over at minus 15 or 20. But it's right there. It's between 9 and 9.5. You want to lay the juice, you can play under 9 and get even money in this. But I like Anderson if he goes 6 innings, and I certainly, in that case, I like him to pitch well enough to confuse a Washington team that's not only this is a pedestrian lineup. I don't care what they did. What they've done so far, they really have exposed Philly, guys. They've exposed Philly for who they really are. If Washington is going to do what they did, for instance, last night, which, well, again, frustrates the hell out of me. And I've talked too long on this game, but it's because I've thought about this NL East for hours upon hours upon hours, how I was going to play my futures in the second half and where I would play the futures right now, and that I'm still a firm believer, despite the fact that I told him today that Philly was going to win this division. Watch out. Here comes Atlanta.
Yeah.
And how does anyone say, listen, a team that probably is going, I expected them to sweep St. Louis. They were 2 games under 500 going into that series. And when they leave St. Louis on Thursday night, I think they head to New York. I'm not certain where they go. But when they leave, it will be the first time this season that they're over 500 by 1 game, 55 and 54. And if that's the case, guys,
that's amazing.
I think that they're going to be a tough out in late September when when Philadelphia, the New York Mets, and the Atlanta Braves are all, I think those 3 teams play in the final 6 days, the final 3 days of September, and the first 3 days of October. And how much fun is that going to be?
It's like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Jesse Shule, what do you think of this matchup? If you have an opinion or a strong opinion.
We're talking about your model here on the Atlanta-St. Louis game, right?
Yep, or anything that Tony Finn shared. Which we were talking about 2 pitchers that
he probably what F and Tony shared. but in regards to the Atlanta St. Louis, it wouldn't be a play for me. But looking at your model with the under, I looked at the weather report. It seems the wind's blowing in. It says that we could expect reduce the ball to not to carry as well as it might if the wind was going the other direction. And St. Louis bats haven't impressed me much this year. They seem to be underachieving at the plate. So you could maybe talk me into a small play on the under, and that would be it for me.
Sounds good. Nick, anything to add? All right.
Nick's
asleep.
That's quite all right. Hey, Nick, I actually got hit for the first time by a golf ball on Sunday.
First time. That's it?
Yep, first time I've ever gotten
that's exactly
clocked.
right. That's what I said, Nick.
Clocked. But
I've hit myself before up at a tree or something trying to be tricky. I hit a ball and hit myself.
Wait, this is my story now, Tony.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Playing with my oldest boy and college professor, chemistry and biology, and he plays pretty decent, right? And every once in a while, he'll hit a bad shot and then maybe drop a ball and hit one. My ball is in the left side of the fairway, so I'm a little bit ahead of him in the rough. He hits. I go over about 10 feet, walking forward towards the green. All of a sudden, I hear click. And as soon as I heard click, I thought my Achilles in the back of my right leg just about blew off my leg.
Oh, jeez.
And I was flopping around, and of course, at a country club, you're not supposed to swear. But
I missed that.
I didn't swear. I actually didn't say anything. I think I was so shocked that he didn't look up to see if there was anybody in the way. But thank God it was a worm burner and not a line drive at one of our heads. It was pretty scary, but I haven't missed a show because of it, and I'm begging the physicians not to put me on the DL for the shows. So I'm sucking it up, and that's what champions do, right, Nick?
That's it. Don't be scared of the next shot you hit because you think you're going to get hit by a ball.
Like in girls' gymnastics, I can't help myself. Her last name is Carrie. She did miserably bad on the horse. Miserably bad. Actually did a routine that didn't even get a score because it wasn't even a legal move, I guess. The very next night, she comes back and wins the gold medal in the floor exercise. Now, that's the kind of stuff that gets my attention. All right, so let's move on to another game. Here we go. The one game we wanted to talk real quick about because our buddy wants to know here, and I think this is a good question. Does Harvey stay hot first 5 against the Yanks plus 207 tonight? And this came up on my model as a play against the Yankees. It's not a 4-unit play, but it's pretty damn close to it. Kind of like the Marlins situation last night, but a little bit different because it's not as far as I know, Seattle's not using a bullpen type of arrangement for their pitching. But let's start with Rob Veno and just quickly go right around the table. Take a minute and a half, and just pass the baton over to Tony, and we'll roll right through this.
Yeah, well, Matt Harvey puts you between a rock and a hard place here because it's hard to trust what you're seeing right now can continue because it hasn't been there for the better part of 3.5 years. But he's on fire right now. Certainly his last outing prolonged the streak to, I think, three really solid games in a row. His last 18 innings, his ERA is like 0.6. Looks like the Matt Harvey when he first came up with the Mets. And he's been able to go a little bit of distance, which is helpful because the Orioles bullpen is something you want to avoid at all costs. Problem with the Orioles is, again, it's another righty. It's Jameson Taillon. Very difficult to back Baltimore against righties. The discrepancy between how they hit lefties and hit righties is like night and day. And Jameson Taillon may be as hot right now as Matt Harvey. So as good as Harvey's been, Taillon's been just as good. He's got the better lineup. He's got the better bullpen behind him. Obviously, it's why he's favored. But you're getting a red-hot pitcher at a big dog price. And generally, that's enough if you're just mechanically playing things to get you to the window and take a shot, the proverbial flyer with an underdog, even at first 5 money, or even at Adam was talking yesterday about taking plus 1.5 runs is something he likes to do. You take plus 1.5 runs here with Matt Harvey, and I think, let me just check real quick, I think you can still get plus price even at plus 1.5 here. You wind up taking $1.20 for the game. If you want to play first 5, you get plus 145, even more. So, I mean, when you have a pitcher like this, I couldn't talk anybody off a flyer on Matt Harvey, but I will say Jameson Taillon's been just as good as of late, and I just don't like the Orioles against right-handed pitching this season. Haven't been good. Don't know if they'll hit this guy real good tonight. So, maybe you get an under, a first 5 under out of these two. Maybe you get a full game under out of these two. But I don't know. I didn't play the game. I could see a case for either side, but I could see people who want to play the big price. I can understand why you would want to play the big price here.
Alrighty, Mr. Finn. First 5 plus 207 in 90 seconds or less.
Okay. Harvey's first off, 3 straight starts, no earned runs. He threw 6.1, shutout again, striking out 6 in his last start, which was back-to-back 6-inning starts, allowing no runs. And his third consecutive solid outing. Obviously, at most, it's a bit shocking. At least those of us who live and die and breathe and exhale and eat, sleep, and digest baseball for a couple months in the summer. A little bit of surprise, especially since had to be a surprise that he was even still in the rotation. 88 innings, 20 starts, 6.85, K/9, ERA 6.2, I think it was. But here's the deal: he was in the lineup, still in the lineup for 2 reasons. 2, because he'd pitched better than that. He really had. His xFIP was 4.43, or his FIP was at 4.43. His His exit velocity is lowest since 2016, guys, 89.5. In truth, his home run per 9 innings, 1.23, the lowest since 2016, when he was not just serviceable, he was capable. So there are a lot of reasons to believe that bloated ERA should be closer to his FIP 4, and he faces a heavy right-handed lineup that in his last starts, Detroit, Washington, Kansas City, those are no teams that are going to scare, again, you or I or anyone on this panel. How do you not play Harvey tonight with what I've just described to you in a right-handed heavy lineup against the Yankees team has shown every once in a while they show their capabilities, but for the most part this season, pedestrian offense. I'll take that money. I'll take that Harvey and that plus money.
One thing I'll add here before I let Jesse take the floor here is the Yankees bullpen since the All-Star break. And you guys learned yesterday that I think bullpen ERA is pretty worthless. I like runs allowed, period, regardless of how they're created. Obviously they're created by errors. But the Yankees ranked 21st in that category, allowing 2 runs by their bullpen unit since the All-Star break. Surprisingly, the Mariners are 1.62 runs, and that was one of the key things that I saw in breaking down this game that really drew my attention to Seattle and being such a huge dog, because this tells me that, yeah, Yankees could be up in the 7th, 8th inning and blow it. And I want to start being on those teams that are taking advantage of the bullpens that are struggling. And the Yankees' pen's been worked because of the starting pitching has been terrible, and they've logged far too many innings. But anyway, Jesse, what do you have to add to this?
I got a question for all you guys. Do any of you guys or all you guys use batter versus pitcher stats?
Yes. Well, you mean depends on what you mean, but
well, I mean, I'm looking at Harvey here, and he's the Yankees lineup is batting 153 against him in previous meetings.
Yes. Yeah. Listen, I like those, but I do break them down a little bit. As far as those. When was it? What year? I mean, in this case with Harvey, has it been the last 3 years? Because if it's been the last 3 years, I really like it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, for those that are new bettors and new analytics, you got to be careful to make sure that the pitcher didn't pitch in 2013 and then never saw that opponent again until 2018.
Yeah.
And obvious for veterans like us, but I just thought I'd mention that for the beginners. Nick.
Yeah, I just quickly had I was going to go a little further.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm curious what you're going to go.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I'd be more inclined. I like the play on Harvey. I do. And with the batter versus pitcher stats, I mean, Harvey's been in Baltimore for a couple seasons now. So some of those at bats could be recent at the very least. And 153 is quite low. I mean, we're not talking about 222, 242. 153 is a stand off the page number. He's on a roll. The Yankees have been inconsistent, but I'd be more inclined, as Rob Veno mentioned. I'm just a guy that I don't like to play 2-1 dogs on the money line. I'd much rather take the runs, increase my win probability. The kind of customers that I deal with, they want to win 60, 65, 70% of the time rather than win 40% of the time and hit those, as much as they might say they want to hit the big dogs, they're not really looking to lose 60% of their bets, even if, because if you're playing 2-1 dogs and you're winning 40%, you're going to do well, but you're still losing 60% of your bets, right? And for people that fly in day by day and grab whatever's on the shelf, they want something with in that higher win probability for the daily pick buyers and this and that. So I'd be more inclined to take them on the +0.5 for the first 5 innings than anything else, really, because he's only going to go 5 or 6 innings, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yep. Love it.
Makes sense.
And I'm looking at the
you're
charts
in trouble.
here.
It makes sense to me. You're in trouble, by the way. Go ahead.
Looking at the charts for his when he's good, he's going to be pitching from a catcher, if you're the catcher looking at him, he's going to dominate the lower right hand portion based on your view. So down and into a lefty, down and away from a righty.
No.
The worst place he throws it, exit velocity of 95.2, is down the middle in the lower half of the strike zone, which is most of the times that is the worst for everybody. That's not earth shattering. But when he stays away and down in the zone, lower half, exit velocity on both sides combined, 81.5 miles per hour, which is outstanding.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So that's a great, great pick there. Mr. Nick, anything to add on this?
When did Harvey leave New York?
Do they still call him the Dark Knight?
Listen, I still
I
wish.
love it.
I
I
saw
love
him
it.
on fantasy team years ago. I didn't even know he left. What happened?
I wish he was still in Anaheim. I wish he was still pitching in Anaheim. I would bet against him. It was a depressing day. I was a night of silence and a day of mourning when they cut him, because I had made a fortune betting against him then.
Yeah, it's been kind of a while.
Yeah,
Longer than Zach Wheeler's been away from New York, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we went around the horn there, and the last game I want to talk about before we do our final bets, and we would be foolish not to mention it. We have Max Scherzer making his LA Dodger debut against those Houston Astros. And much to my surprise, I had this game lined at about minus 165, minus 170, and he is currently 210. Now, granted, they are playing in LA, but this is a head scratcher. So let's start with Rob Veno and see what his thoughts are on this matchup.
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and, when we get the best bet segment, I won't have to talk about
Okay.
this game because I already will have talked about it. But I did a little thing for WagerTalk's First Five show today. Dodgers minus half a run, minus 145. 145 is about the ceiling for what I'm willing to lay in baseball. But this is as much a fade of Jake Odorizzi as it is a play on Max Scherzer. It's more of a fade of Jake Odorizzi than it is a play on Scherzer. Jake Odorizzi, for anybody who's watched his career, you would put him in that upper level category of streaky pitchers. When he's really good, you got to get to the window with this guy for the amount of time that he's going to continue to throw good starts, because it inevitably always goes south. And he was really, really good, and then they came out of the break, and it's starting to go a little bit south. Since the All-Star break, he's made 3 starts. He hasn't gone deeper than 5 1/3 innings in any of those starts. He's allowed at least 3 earned runs in all of them. Seattle, Texas, and the White Sox were the 3 teams he faced. 13 1/3 combined innings, 15 hits and 7 walks. So 22 base runners in 13 1/3 innings, 1.65 whip, 4 home runs allowed in those 13 1/3 innings. That's really more alarming than anything else. A home run every 3 innings, or about 3 1/3 innings pitched. Those 3 teams that I mentioned, I guess, I won't say that the Dodgers lineup is better than all 3, because somebody might want to, argue me tooth and nail that the White Sox lineup is as good as the Dodgers. So let's just say the Dodgers lineup is equal to or better than the 3 teams he faced. And they certainly got the power. The 3 pitchers he faced, Giolito, Colby Allard, and Kikuchi, I'd say Max Scherzer is better than all 3 of those guys. Another part of this handicap, guys, was the difference in pitching styles. Last night we watched Lance McCullers absolutely dominate the Dodger lineup, which is like a lot of lineups around Major League Baseball are. They're fastball hitting lineup. They don't like that breaking stuff. And Lance McCullers does nothing but throw breaking stuff. On the season, Lance McCullers, curveball or slider 48% of the time, 1 out of every 2 pitches. Sometimes it's more than that if he gets into a groove during the game. Last night it happened to be 41% sliders. Pretty high whiff percentage on those sliders last night. The Dodgers just didn't like the breaking ball. They couldn't hit it. Jake Odorizzi's the exact opposite. Here's a guy who throws the fastball 79% of the time. in one form or another. Four seam, 57.5% of the time. A split finger, 22% of the time, split finger fastball. So he's all fastball, hardly anything else. The curve and the slider combined comes out of his hand 13% of the time, 13.5. It's a totally different style of pitcher, more conducive to the Dodger lineup. So I think what we saw last night, just a reflection of how you beat these Dodger hitters. If your ace pitch is a breaking ball, curve or slider, there's not many in Major League Baseball that throw it as often as Lance McCullers throws it. He's one of a small breed. So I think the Dodgers will hit the ball a little bit here against this guy. Max Scherzer, first outing. Let's talk about him for just a second. His career numbers in Dodger Stadium. Never been a Dodger, but certainly a National League pitcher. He's visited there quite a bit. 9 games he started in this park. Batting average against 222. I think it's significant because every time he's been there, he's faced the Dodgers. Pretty good lineup for the last 10 years or so. 222 batting average against, 284 on base percentage against. Max Scherzer in Dodger Stadium has faced 273 batters. He's allowed 3 home runs. That's 1 home run about every 85 batters. So he probably takes a little bit of the Astro power away here. Certainly he's going to be in a situation, and we know he's a gamer, but his first start in the top of that rotation with Buehler and with Kershaw, it's going to be certainly going to be some friendly competition, much the way it was with Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz. I think he does enough in the first 5 innings here, guys. 5 of his last 6 starts, I believe it is, he's allowed, or 5 of his last 7 starts, he's allowed less than 3 earned runs in the first 5, either 1, 2, or 0. If he allows 1 or nothing, that's going to be more than enough here. I'm going to fade Odorizzi. We'll play Scherzer and the Dodgers here to make a bounce back. This type of pitcher suits their lineup, so don't like to lay 145, but I'll lay the half a run and lay the 45 cents here with LA first 5 innings.
I love it. And with that said, why don't we? I'll leave it up to you guys as an option to do your final pick. Rob just started the final round of your personal best bets for the show. And if you want to tear apart the Dodgers-Houston game, feel free to do so. If not, then we'll focus on the game that you like. So we'll go to Tony Finn now.
Really?
Well, this means I'm the anchor, so this could go on for another hour, but okay. I'm kidding. But Tony has the stage.
Okay, I'm going to do something unusual then. I'm going to break. I'll break tradition. I'll go outside the lines, and my free pick tonight is Golden State -3.
Oh, I had him last night.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, you got nice. You had the tougher game. That took overtime, but yeah. I mean, it took some extra minutes, but good job. Yeah, I like Golden State -3 over Miami tonight in the Sacramento Classic. It's the final day before I think everyone heads. I believe it is. I don't know if they have anything else going on, but I think everyone heads, and the Summer League starts on Monday right here in Sin City, Las Vegas, where everything that happens doesn't leave. What happens here in Vegas stays here in Vegas. Bullshit.
Real quick, which gyms do they use for that Summer Classic?
I think it's MGM, and I think it's the heck Orleans. I think the Orleans, and Orleans. I'll have to look it up but it's changed over the years. But
it has.
I think it's Orleans and MGM, but I could be wrong. But I'll check on that for you. I'll find out while I'm talking. Listen, there's lots of reasons why I like Golden State -3 tonight. The fact that Miami, believe it or not, it's just Summer League, but it makes a difference, and that was Miami beat the Lakers yesterday. So I believe I'm getting 1.5, 2 points of recent bias from that game yesterday. So there you go, Golden State -3.
I like it. Is Ben Simmons on Golden State now? I heard there's
he is, and let me tell you, they've handcuffed him. And they said, "Listen, you're allowed to cheer and say nice things to your teammates, and and basically yell and scream nasty things at them, but you're not allowed to touch the ball."
Well, I also heard rumor that it's easier to shoot free throws on the Golden State basketball court than it is the Wells Fargo Center in Philly.
Well, he can shoot free throws because with the hands cuffed tied below his waist, he gets to shoot them underhanded. He can't miss any more than he does overhanded.
And one last question. Rob Veno, his head's going to blow off. Can someone in this show, of the four of you, other than myself, tell me how a professional basketball player who's an all-star, who ranks 11th in triple-doubles, is told by his coaching staff that you're using the wrong hand to shoot?
Well,
that'd be like Nick Gorman telling me, John, you just shot 73, but you really are a left-handed golfer.
The coach was dyslexic. There you go.
So Davey Roberts is the coach of the Sixers too?
Jesse. Davey Roberts left 10 runners on base last night. They advanced one runner to third base.
He's generous.
He's generous. To third base. And the overrated and the worst MVP selection in the history of MVPs struck out with runners on first and third. And down go the Dodgers. Or was that Frazier?
That was Frazier.
Well, I think in this case it's the Dodgers, I think.
All right.
But James McGinnis says Cody Bellinger hit the ball yesterday. Incredible. Now, I have one question on that.
Yeah.
Was it a batted ball and play for an out, or was it actually a hit?
They were all outs.
They were all outs.
All of them outs.
Yeah, they only
And when
had
runners
Oh,
on
man.
first and third, he struck out.
I don't think he'll ever be the MVP again in the league.
Oh, he can't be the MVP. I mean, people the first time around, they already had death threats. Some of them have been kicked off the committee. They can no longer vote. It's ridiculous.
once Trey Turner gets off the COVID list and out to Los Angeles, he shouldn't even be in the lineup.
Yeah, well, that's funny. You said if I'm certain if DeGrom pitched for the Dodgers, that some bitch would he would either have a 10.2 ERA or he would just be voted MVP and Cy Young every year.
Jacob DeGrom did announce today that he will be back this season.
Yeah, he'll be back, but what will in what capacity?
He claims he's very.
Well, I claim I'm the Taj Mahal.
optimistic.
Hey, Rob, it'll be about the third time he's claimed that this year, though, right?
Yeah, well, you know what? You can't trust the player. You can't trust the trainer. You can't trust anybody till you see it for yourself, Jesse. That's the thing.
And trust Finn.
I think he's looking at the 1st of September. From what I read today, he doesn't think this is even as bad as his forearm strain was. So
I told you what he was throwing when they decided they're going to lock him down for
98.
a month. Off flat ground.
You said that yesterday, Tony, and I was thinking, 98's great, but
Yeah.
what if he's lacking command?
Well, that's not relevant with our conversation. It isn't. That's like saying, listen, the guy. Listen, that guy got the cheerleader, and that's like 10 grades above his what he should be getting paid. And what we didn't find out about the cheerleader, I won't go there. Let's go on.
All right, Jesse, you got the floor for your free pick.
Okay, what I want to talk about is the AL MVP.
Oh, I like this one. Come on.
yeah,
And you got Shohei Ohtani is a 6-1 favorite. And when I say 6-1, I don't mean you bet 100 and you get 600. I mean you bet 600 to get 100. So what they're saying there is
That's
they've
1 to
already
6 then.
decided they're going to give Ohtani the MVP. It's already been decided.
Yes.
They're only a couple weeks into the second half.
Yes.
They've already voting is closed. Is that what they're saying? Maybe that's
Well,
what they're
they said the same thing about DeGrom. A month ago, he was minus 300. What was he? He wasn't set, but he was
Like minus
ridiculous.
250.
Right, and now he's 10-1.
Exactly. And the same concern resonates with Ohtani. I've got his games played listed here. Last year, he played 44 games, 106 games the year before, 104 games before the year before that. He's played 101 games so far this year. So by next week, he'll be at a career high in games played.
Mhm.
He's pitching as well as hitting. That gives him twice as likely to get another injury. The Angels are out of the playoffs, so they don't really need to take any chance. If he pulls a hamstring or he gets a bruise or anything like that, sit him for a week, let him recover, while other guys rack up home runs and RBIs. I mean, they're not going to take any chances with this guy. He's so valuable to them. He's also got no protection in the lineup. Who's batting behind him? You got Justin Upton, Matt Stassi, John
Phil
Lagarde.
Gosselin.
I mean,
Prep's own Phil Gosselin.
if the Angels are playing teams that are fighting for the playoffs, why would they pitch to him?
Yeah, they're not going to do anything. Listen,
you know what? And
he's-
to your point,
I'm looking at Vlad at plus 450, and I mean he's got a chance to win the Triple Crown. He's batting 324. That's third in the American League. He's only a few back in home runs, and he's leading the American League in RBIs. The atmosphere with the Jays right now, if anybody's seen a game lately, I mean, they're joking around. They're taping him to the bench. These guys are, you could tell there's something special happening with the return to Toronto, the young core they have. They're happy to go to the ballpark every day. I don't see it being the same atmosphere that you're going to have in LA in September when they're not going anywhere.
So what's your pick? What's the pick? Who are you picking?
Vladdy.
Who?
Vladdy for MVP. Tony.
Oh, Vladdy for MVP? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I wouldn't argue with that. I wouldn't argue I wouldn't argue with anything like that. I don't think Toronto's going anywhere, but I wouldn't argue with that. Definitely.
Well, they're going to be in it at least.
Yeah, I think they're if they're yeah.
They think.
What are they out right now? Are they out? What are they out of the wild card?
3 or 4 games, maybe.
3 or 4. Okay.
Yeah,
Right there.
they're close enough.
I saw. Listen, after the All-Star break, I don't know if there's Toronto fans among us, but I'm not what I'm going to say they won't like, and that is after the All-Star break, the games that Toronto played against Kansas City, I played the unders all 3 of those, and I cashed all 3. But and what I've seen in the first half is this team's young. First off, they need more pitching than they have to compete in 7-game series.
You mean like J.A. Happ and John Lester?
No, well, I think you know my feeling on that. I know my feeling on that for certain. I think
Well,
they
how
need
about
more.
Barrios, though?
They need their young hitting core is really exciting. They are reckless they're destructively reckless as a team in the field, and their defense is subpar, which concerns me. And not because they're not talented, is just because they're young and they kick some balls around that they should never have kicked around. That championship teams would never have kicked around. So I like Toronto. I like what they've done. They need more pitching and they need a little more experience through that lineup. But as is, they're a team to be reckoned with in the East for as long as they keep that core of hitters. Keep that core of at lineup. It's a good lineup. It really is.
Good lineup. It's Jesse.
Yeah.
What'd you get? Plus 450 or plus 650? What'd you say?
Plus 450.
Yeah, he's worth it. Angels just showed how careful they're going to be because they pushed Trout back again. Trout, we may not see Trout anymore this year.
No.
So certainly
Yeah.
they'll be careful with Ohtani. Hey, Tone, let me
Yeah.
tell you how astute of a bettor you are, since you don't know how astute you are already.
I don't even know what astute means, but go ahead.
You're a smart man.
Go ahead.
Playing those 3 unders, Kansas City and Toronto, right? The odds maker priced those 3 totals as if
Yes,
were
they did.
playing in Dunedin or Buffalo.
Yep.
How could you not play those 3 games?
I don't know.
11,
I don't know.
10.5.
We shouldn't have. Listen, the Toronto did everything they could to make me a loser in that Friday night game. They kicked the ball around. It was ridiculous. And I knew that. At that point in time, what I just spoke to and shared my opinion on, that is just my opinion from a couple from being, I'm being only 22. I don't have a whole lot of experience watching baseball over the years. But my experience is that is it's a telling sign of a team that's really excited. They were excited about being back home. They're excited about playing with each other. But they have a lot. Vlad Jr., that whole – but let me tell you something. There are a couple of guys that are so streaky offensively too that will disappear as they get Bichette. All those guys, they'll get better about being more consistent and level, But right now, my goodness gracious, if I was in that clubhouse, I would say, listen, is Bichette, is he juiced? tonight, or is he going to be able to be, have a level swing? I would want to know, because they're so high and low, so manic, that that's what young players do. They get excited. They really get excited, and young gamblers, even young touts like us, I don't get really excited about winning or losing. I don't get too high or too low. Obviously, I don't like to lose, but I sure don't like to remember it. I've learned not to remember it. Let's put it that way.
George Springer is supposed to bring some of that calm to those.
Yes, he is. He is supposed to. But then, if you've been a man among some, or supposedly a man, at least chronologically a man, around some kids, try to control them.
Yeah, but by example.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't even gotten the best of George Springer yet.
No, they have not. Yeah.
Hopefully they do.
Hey guys, I gotta hit it. Good luck tonight. I gotta hit it.
Okay, hey buddy, listen.
Thanks for the baseball tips.
Remember,
what's your best PGA tip? Best PGA bet. You don't have to give any detail. Just
do not be putting for par. You can't win a tournament if you're putting for par.
Sporting Kansas City +1 goal over LAFC tonight.
Ooh, Sporting Kansas City. Mahomes likes you. He's watching.
+1 goal. That's right. Part owner, Mahomes.
That's right.
There you go.
I think
see you guys.
Love it.
Carm likes. Take care, Nick.
And I guess it brings it down to me. So Boston is on a season-high losing streak of 5 games, and that certainly doesn't mean that they're due to win. There is no such thing as due to win. The only thing that's due is your electric bill and IRS taxes, as far as I learned from Mr. Finn over the years.
I ignore those, too. They're not due.
But I am going, believe it or not, I'm going against Boston. I mean, can you believe this? And the reason why is because they are 2-6 on a 5-game losing streak the past 3 seasons. Went on the road. Furthermore, Billy Joel. I'm trying to get a reaction from Tony. I think did he mute his mic? Tony Joel. Billy Joel's playing at Fenway tonight, which makes the karma worse for the Red Sox because have you ever been to a Billy Joel concert?
Couple.
I love his songs. I love his music. I've seen him 3 times. I've seen him with Elton John in the piano battle in Philadelphia. But every single song, the lyrics are so sad. It's either this girl ruined my life, I drank too much.
You'd be sad too if every concert, Christy Brinkley was stalking you with a gun and threatening to shoot your ass.
Well, I'm just afraid that karma is just going to spill over into Detroit tonight. But seriously, there's a lot of things working against Boston right now. I still like them to win the East. This is just what teams go through every single year. They have those pockets after the All-Star break where they flat out suck and they get beat by teams like Detroit. But keep in mind, Detroit, since that poor start of, what was it, you guys, 9-23, they're 43-33. They're hardly a Detroit.
Oh no! They scored the most runs in July. They do a lot of things right. They do a lot of things right, but they're Detroit.
And I'm taking Detroit plus the whatever it is, 135, and then I have I'm piggybacking off of Rob Veno's pick. So I'm going under 4.5 hits allowed by Scherzer at plus 105, and under 3.5 Ks for Odorizzi, plus 120.
You say over?
Under in both. Under 4.5 hits.
Under 3.5 Ks on Odorizzi.
You know why? Because Rob Veno has me convinced that he's not going to last more than 3 innings.
Well, if he was pitching against his own lineup, I'm with you. But he's not. He's pitching against Dave Roberts' kids. They take a blind. They're swinging for the fences every time they get to the plate, regardless of count, regardless of situation. Did you guys have you heard that they had 10 base runners left on base last night?
Well, it's quite a few. I mean, it's a small village. You know?
No, I'm giving you trouble, John.
Here, I have two things to tell you before we sign off. But I want you to go around the room too and tell everybody you have going on at WagerTalk and do a little promotion. But George Springer, you brought up. Now, everybody write this down because this is one of the best player props for a team that I have played for years.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, and this is combining the Astros and the Blue Jays. So, in games coming off a game where you had no hits, his team is 172 and 104 for 62.3%. That is an 11% ROI. Just blindly doing that, the $100 bettor has made close to $4,200. The run line is not quite as good, but it's the fact that when he's coming off a game with no hits, his team generally wins at a pretty high level. I just want to type in Blue Jays here.
Who are we talking about?
George Springer.
And we're talking about George Springer and his team?
Yeah, yes.
We have a trend. Hold on, John. We have a trend on George Springer, the influence George Springer has on the rest of the team at the plate and stuff like that.
I don't think it's a coincidence. When coming off a game where he has no hits.
Okay, all right.
How many times has the guy gone back-to-back games with no hits?
Lots of times. Depends on who you are. Steve Jeltz happened at least 100 times every year.
But for whatever reason, he is a positive impetus in the next game because even with the Blue Jays, they're 8-3, and did he have was he hitless last game? No, he had a hit last game.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm listening because I'm definitely interested in these kind of things. I'm not interested in contemplating it for too long, but I am interested in looking tonight later on to see if they've won and if he had any hits and those kind of things.
This would be meaningless if you took a guy that's batting 7th, 8th, or 9th for obvious reasons. But I consider Springer a good, solid, elite hitter.
Okay.
So those guys usually don't go too many games. He's had 84 games in his 84 games
just
in his
hypothetically.
career.
Hypothetically, if Springer had not played for Houston and now Toronto, let's say Springer played for let's say he played for the Marlins. Let's say he was playing for the Marlins tonight, and you took that trend. Does it apply?
Oh, it probably wouldn't, but I'm saying it's not a George Springer like you go out and put him in your DraftKings lineup after a game where he had no hits. I'm just saying that the team, after a game where he has no hits, like Rizzo and Bryant combined for the Cubs was another good one. Both of those guys have no hits in the game, and more importantly, I think it was when they won the game without them having a hit.
Right.
They won the game in the next game.
That makes sense.
At a high level.
That makes sense because, two guys like that that don't get a hit, they're figuring to get a hit in the next game. And if those two guys are in your lineup and they're hitting, I would say you have a pretty good chance of winning. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so let's start with, we'll let Rob Veno wrap it up with the anchor. Just go around the room here. Tony Finn, tell us how we can get your plays and what special deals you have.
Buy me.
Any 5%ers.
I've closed
whatever
all
you
sales.
Want to say.
You can't buy me. I've closed everything down. You can listen to all the shows I do and try to figure out who I'm on if you'd like, but you can't buy me anymore. So don't even go try. Don't even go to WagerTalk and try to buy me because you can't do it.
I want them to buy your picks, not buy you.
Well, you can't buy my picks either. That's part of me.
Oh, okay.
Can't buy them. Don't go get them. Don't even go try. Can't buy them.
Jesse Shule, what do you have going?
I've got a huge 10% play in college football for week 1 already available at sportsmemo.com on a huge matchup between Clemson and Georgia in week 1.
Nice. I love it. I can't wait for that game. Cannot wait. My special promo.
Crazy to bet big in week 1 like that, but I've made a habit of doing it over the last 4 or 5 years. Great success.
Well, for what it's worth, I put a free pick out on Florida Atlantic plus 24.5 over Florida, and we can talk about this on tomorrow's show, but I think that line's going to go closer to 20 or 20.5 by game time, which is only 5 weeks away. But they have all 20 starters coming back. Not all 20. They have 20 of 22 starters, including the quarterback, coming back for the Owls. And Florida is not Alabama, in my opinion. They don't just reload, and they have a lot to reload because they only have 5 returning starters on defense, 5 on offense. And Florida Atlantic got a transfer running back that's a stud from South Florida. And they already had a pretty darn good running game. So I'll leave it at that for now. I have this. I feel pretty good about this. Matt Joseph and I are tied together. He was number 1 at Sports Member in college football. I was number 1 in the NFL. And you can get us both, cover both sports for $5.99, saving yourself 400 smackers, which you can then use to spend on Rob Veno, Jesse Scholl, and Tony Finn. And I think that's a hell of a deal. So I feel humbled by this. I really do. I'm tied with Matt Josephs, and that's pretty good company, right? So, Rob Veno, what do you have going? And you can be the anchor and tie this all up.
All right. Well, we have already one loser in the books today, courtesy of the Cincinnati Reds bullpen 6-1 lead. Castillo left with, and they immediately turned that into a 6-5 win, which killed my 1.5 run line bet with the Reds.
Oh, my God.
There are plays remaining. That's 2 nights in a row, by the way, for those watching the Reds bullpen.
Yep.
For those people that were so high on the Reds are going to catch somebody and they're going to make the playoffs, and not so fast because that bullpen stinks.
I was one of them.
But Nick Castellanos is on the way back, so the offense will get a little bit better. But boy, oh boy, and that kid pitched his brains out today for 6 innings, Castillo, which he's done for the last 8 weeks. But just wasn't good enough to cover 1.5. They did get the victory. Real quick, couple baseball plays for this evening up and available, WagerTalk.com. Have not fully decided whether or not I'll be involved tomorrow with NFL exhibition. There's some pretty decent information out on that game. Would not be surprised to see some line movement one way or the other there. I just don't get involved in the Hall of Fame game ever, but maybe this will be the first time. We'll see. I'm going to go over that tonight, but for now, baseball up and available, WagerTalk.com, a 21-7 run over the course of the last 28 plays, 75%. So pretty
awesome.
Well at baseball last few weeks, or last, let's say 2 weeks, 10 days, 2 weeks. Wasn't very
awesome.
good.
And let's not forget Canadian Football League starts tomorrow, and that means Don Buster of Buster Sports, who is number 1 at WagerTalk, and that's not all. He's number 1 at Sports Memo, too. And he has a really good deal. I believe off the top of my head, it's $2.99 for the entire Canadian Football League season. So with the deals that I just showed you with Matt Joseph and myself, you can save the money from that deal and use it to get Don Buster and all these guys here for whatever subscriptions they have, and you end up paying the same price as if you paid the regular price for Matt Joseph and myself without the discount. So I think I'm making a good point there that you want to take advantage of these guys, especially Don Buster, who's number 1 at both places. That, to me, means he must know something about Canadian football. He lives in Mexico most of the time, but now he's back in Canada. And I guess he went back to Canada either because it was too hot in Mexico or because of the Canadian Football League season starting. So that'll wrap it up, guys. Thanks for your time today, as always. It's always a blast. It's a great way to end the day. And thanks, Max on Record in the chat room. We got James McGinnis. We got Steve's book. We got Alex Vale and a bunch of others. It would take me half an hour to read all the names. But we're very grateful to you for supporting this live show. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. So on behalf of Tony Finn, Rob Veno, Jesse Scholl, myself, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com, and the Predictive Playbook, may all the wins be yours.